Let's go. Welcome into the sweat. Adam Kaufman, Tyler Sullivan, parachuting in to preview the NFL's Divisional Round. Small 4-game slate in the hardwood and a busy 12-gamer on the ice.
Yeah, but let's first start in the association here with DK Live's Julian Edlow, Gary and Thorne, plus Karan Phillips of the New York Daily News. Guys, first, a news download. We're going to talk about the headlines going around the association here. First up, Blake Griffin not playing tonight after his poor shooting performance on Wednesday night here. He's not playing here tonight. So, Julian, how do we react to this news?
Yeah, well, first things first, it makes Andre Drummond a much more attractive option. And in that Lakers game last night, it was Drummond cleaning up on the glass. And Blake Griffin, first game back in the Staples Center since being traded, he didn't even get a rebound. I think that has a huge role in why he's resting tonight. Detroit must have seen something where he just did not have fresh legs to pull down even one rebound in that game. So Drummond is obviously the first reaction against a Sacramento team that really struggles against centers and has one of the worst rebounding rates in the league, allows the most rebounds to the center position. So Drummond was already a good play. He becomes a much better play. But Drummond isn't, the type of scorer that Griffin is. He's not going to get you buckets. So your guys like Stanley Johnson, like Reggie Jackson, the guys that can actually score on that team now become better fantasy options as well because somebody's got to get the points.
All right, Gary, and how are you viewing this Blake Griffin news? And is there anything else out there in the association that's catching your eye?
I mean, I think Julian summed it up pretty well. I think Andre Drummond was already in a smash spot tonight against the Sacramento Kings. I mean, the rebounding numbers, the pace numbers, they all kind of come together to make it a perfect spot to utilize centers against them. But yeah, you kind of have to start looking at the secondary piece of this Pistons team. I mean, Reggie Jackson's always a high upside, exceedingly low floor type player, but you'd have to think he gets to the 30 minutes a night. That's kind of been the key to his success so far this season. Even someone like John Lure now becomes like, I don't want to say a must play, but if you're playing the showdown slate tonight, very attractive price point at $1,800. So I think that side of the ball, that's obviously massive news. And strangely enough, like Amon Shumpert playing in this game on the other side of the ball is Shumpert himself is not a big DFS guy, but he does have the trickle-down effect of affecting guys like Justin Jackson, obviously even affecting someone as crazy as like Ben McLemore, who went off for a season-best 20 points his last time out. So a lot of little stuff, but the Griffin stuff is obviously the biggest news of the day.
Karan, I'm going to pose this to you now, obviously the Blake Griffin news, but what else is going around the association?
Nothing much, pretty much. Like, even coming in late of having my head buried in the sand all day doing some work, Blake Griffin news is really huge. Because watching that game last night, I just knew he was going to come out on fire tonight, being back in the state of California and trying to right the ship of them getting embarrassed last night on one of the, one or two national TV games the Pistons had, and with no rebounds. I just knew, like, Blake was going to have a throwback monster Blake game tonight. So him not playing, that's kind of huge. And Julian hit it right on the head. Like, you just got to look at Andre Drummond to be the guy now for them, and seeing some other guys step up and take some shots. But the way they shot last night, it seemed like Andre Drummond might just get all the rebounds and get putbacks and just blow up in terms of DK points just off horrible shooting from his teammates.
Guys, we do have some tiers of joy to cover as well, so we can start to branch into some of the other players. 3 guys in tier 1, so it's a very small tier. You got Russell Westbrook, Paul George, Nick Jokic. Is there a case to be made for someone other than Russ, Garion? What do you think?
Yeah, I think you make a pretty strong case for Jokic, actually. I mean, you look at their usage numbers, their touches per game, their passes made per game. There's not many guys with better numbers than Westbrook, and Jokic is one of those few players. He actually leads the NBA in both those categories. Matchup-wise, too, it's not an easy one for OKC. I know that total, we'll talk about that later, one of the stranger totals of the night. There's a couple different ways you can look at it, but San Antonio has not rolled over on defense often the past 3-4 weeks, where Denver's got a pretty pristine matchup. I mean, the Clippers run at a very, very high pace, especially their last 10 games, the 4th highest pace in the NBA. So I think I actually kind of prefer Jokic here. And,
of course, no Jokic trying to take away any rebounds or anything like that, or no Blake Griffin, I should say, with Jokic in and around the hoop. So, Karan, just, again, looking at this tier, if you're removing Russ from the equation, you like his Thunder teammate there in George or the Joker?
I'm going all in on the Joker. Like, we look at this Denver Nuggets team, and they're number 1 in the West right now. I still don't know how this is happening and how they're still holding on to this lead, but they are. And this guy leads them in points, rebounds, assists, and steals, and he's coming off a triple-double game where he put up 29, 11, and 10. So if I can't have Russ, I'm definitely taking that guy.
Felix, unanimous?
Yeah, forget Russ to begin with. Jokic is the top play in this tier. He checks off too many boxes. He's got the better matchup. He's been playing better of late. Jamal Murray takes some shots, but he doesn't have the type of guy next to him like Paul George that's going to take away some of that usage and has the ability to have just as big of a game. So Jokic is he's averaging over 64 DK points across his last 5 games. He's flashed a 73 DK point ceiling. I just think Jokic, everything points in his direction to be the safest and best play in this top tier.
You know, we talked about Blake Griffin at the top of the show here. It continues in Tier 2 here. There were just 3 guys. Now it's 2. You talked about Andre Drummond. We like him, but there's also Kyrie Irving now. It's between Drummond and Kyrie Irving here. So, Karan, how do you like these two if you had to pick one?
I'm going Drummond by default. Like, Blake would have been my original guy, and that's no knock to Kyrie because that's my number 1 guy. But seeing as how it looks like the Celtics are finally trying to right this ship, and that team is figuring out who's going to get the most FGAs every night, and Kyrie's figuring out his role trying to be a leader and a closer for that team. Just with tonight, thinking about how this is going to go, from what I said earlier, like I got to go with Drummond here just because I think he's going to get a ton of rebounds and a ton of putbacks. Then you're going to look up at the end of the night and check out that box score and look at his points, and you're going to be like, whoa, this guy really had a good night just because that other guy who's usually next to him isn't playing tonight.
Well, Jules, I know you pay close attention to the Celtics. The thing that would scare the crap out of me after the C's played last night in terms of rostering Kyrie Irving in a fantasy spot is that he said after the game, look, I may not need to score 30 points again all year till the playoffs. So if this guy's not attacking the hoop regularly, it's kind of a no-brainer.
Yeah, that was a weird statement by Kyrie. He kind of like at first said, I don't have to score 30 again until we play a good team or maybe until the playoffs. But Kyrie will say what Kyrie says. This tier, I was going to say this tier comes down to 2 things. It literally is 2 things. You have Irving or you have Drummond. Drummond will probably be, 80 to 90% owned in this tier now with Blake Griffin out and one other option. So there's 2 choices. You go the safe route and play Drummond, who has a ton of high upside, a great matchup, and injury news or rest news with Griffin that makes him like an elite play. Or you go super contrarian and go Kyrie against a slow-paced Heat team on the road in Miami on the second night of a back-to-back and just see if it pays off for you. So 2 totally different calls. I'll be playing it safe and playing Drummond, but you can definitely make the case for Kyrie because it will be so contrarian.
Certainly interesting there. Gary, where do you fall on this? Is it Drummond or is it Kyrie Irving here?
Yeah, I think Jules is right. There is a possible sort of strategic advantage to maybe taking a chance with Kyrie, but I think there's too many ways to differentiate yourself in tier 5, tier 6. Like, I look at this the same way he does. This is a free space tier at this point. You're just taking Andre Drummond, and Jules mentioned some of the stats off the top to get really specific into it. The last 15 games for Sacramento, they run the 2nd highest pace in the league, and they also have the worst rebounding rate in the Western Conference. They are getting less than 47% of the total rebounds in their games. That's the perfect storm. It's led to them giving up 50.9 rebounds per game. That's the most in the NBA. Andre Drummond has led the NBA in rebounding the last 2 seasons. Like, it just makes way too much sense. I think you just got to go Drummond here.
Now watch Irving go for 30 and 10 tonight.
Yeah, that's usually
all right. Last one.
30 and 10 might not even be enough to outscore Drummond.
That's a fair point, actually.
Like Gary said, the perfect storm. This is the perfect Andre Drummond spot.
Pull out a handful of blocks, too. All right, last one. Julian, since you keep talking, let's stay with you. Tier 6. Who stands out in that final tier?
First of all, Kaufman, don't talk to me about people that like the top 2.
That's a great point.
Go ahead and look in the mirror. If we're going to tier 6 here, we still have the Blake Griffin trickle-down effect. We keep talking about Andre Drummond, but Andre Drummond is not a guy that you isolate and try and get him to the rim and get points. He might get a couple of low post scores. Like Karan said, he's going to get a lot of putbacks probably in this game. But Reggie Jackson is probably the next best scorer on this team. And this was a tier originally. You could make the argument for Schroeder. You could make the argument for Jeremy Grant with Nerlens Noel sidelined with that concussion, kind of a next man up situation. But now with Griffin out, Reggie Jackson's going to be the guy to try and get the points for the Pistons. And again, it comes in a perfect matchup against a really fast-paced Sacramento team.
I don't know what his issue is, Karn. If his inner monologue sounded this good, he'd bring it to the world too. What do you think?
I totally agree with him. I would just, for another reason, take a look at Marcus Smart. I'm just looking at that matchup over in Miami and seeing how this Boston thing worked. Like we talked about Kyrie and that weird quote, which I kind of understood, but I didn't really understand. But I think I know where he's going, if that makes any sense.
Well, he was trying to sound selfless, basically.
It's usually what we do with every Kyrie comment. It's like, I get it. Then it's like, wait, I don't know what you're talking about. But this matchup down in Miami I'm just thinking about all the personalities in that game. Dion Waiters has started to return. Justice Winslow at the point. He's a chesty guy that likes to chirp. And those are the kind of things that get Marcus Smart going. And this is one of those things where it doesn't make sense statistically. But when Marcus Smart is around players that like, trash talk or get him going, he plays really well. And on the defensive end, which also sparks his offense. So Marcus Smart is going to be cheap. And if Kyrie isn't shooting a lot tonight and Marcus Smart's in that starting lineup, why not look for him to get some, catch and shoot threes and get this thing rolling?
Boston's emotional leader. All right, Gary, and real quick, who do you like in Tier 6?
Yeah, it's got to be Reggie Jackson. I thought about Reggie Bullock for a bit. He's just had such a high minutes floor lately, which is usually what's missing from Reggie Jackson. But with this Blake injury news, I think he just had the highest ceiling to begin with in this tier, and the injury news just makes it a little bit more clear.
All right, guys, thanks. We'll bring you back in a little bit. For now, we've got to get to football, though, because the Jets said goodbye to Todd Bowles, but they found their new leading man.
Hey, it's Brendan Glasheen in with this DraftKings Fantasy Flash. Jets expected to hire former Dolphins head coach Adam Gase for the same position. Everyone wants to know if Gase can coach up and elevate quarterback Sam Darnold, make the Jets relevant. The track record is murky. Gase played a part in Peyton Manning's historic 2013 season. He was the quarterback's coach for the future Hall of Famer. In 2015, Gase had the pleasure of piloting a Jay Cutler-led offense in Chicago. The Bears were just okay as an offense. Cutler was at the very least better than his average self. And in Miami, Ryan Tannehill was never consistently healthy. I mean, Tannehill played in exactly half, 24 of 48 games, while Gase spearheaded the Dolphins for 3 seasons. Looking back, it's remarkable Gase got the Fins to the playoffs in 2016. Now he gets to work with a young prospect in Darnold. With decent draft capital and plenty of salary cap space, Gase has promise to prove his teaching can work.
Brendan, thank you, sir. Let's keep the football conversation going with DK Live's Reed Fowler and Pierce Dietrich, plus Chris Spagnolo from awesomemode.com. Pierce, how you been, pal?
Hey, what's going on, Kyle?
It's just great to see you again. High energy. All right, NFL, take your pick, guys. We're trying to determine which player on this weekend's slate is in a better fantasy matchup. Again, this is the divisional round.
Yeah, absolutely. And so why don't we start with the Colts and Chiefs, since Indianapolis is proudly flying that 1-0 playoff banner. It's just, they never cease to amaze there.
This organization.
T.Y. Hilton and Tyreek Hill are the two of the best receivers in the league. Hilton's questionable, but has been that way for weeks now. It's nothing really new there. He's expected to play. He's 6,700. And the Chiefs' defense is awful. Hill is 7,400 versus the Colts, and they have kind of an underrated defense.
They're very good,
so,
yeah.
Reed, who do we like better here?
Yeah, the Colts defense is playing better of late, and I think when they have a number one solely to guard against, then they're good. But if you look at this Kansas City offense, too good. But I'm going Tyreek Hill here. You mentioned it. Hilton has been dealing with some injuries. Yeah, he's been taking the week off, but Frank Reich came out and said, like, if Hilton didn't need to play, they would have rested him those last 2 weeks of the regular season. Tyreek Hill has his own set of injuries, but has that extra couple of weeks to rest. At home over the last 3 games, he's averaging 21 DK fantasy points. And Hilton, outdoors, averaging 57 yards on less than 4 catches. He really likes to play on turf, obviously. So I'm going with Tyreek Hill here.
All right, Pierce, does maybe playing on the road, playing outside, does that factor into this, like Reed said?
That's exactly what I'm going to go to. T.Y. Hilton hasn't scored a touchdown since week 11, but the big story is he's not good outside of the dome, and he never really has been. You can look at his career numbers, and there's a significant decline. I mean, people will say, well, he plays good at Texas. Well, Texas plays in a dome. He plays plenty of games in domes and does well, but when he gets outside Kansas City in January, it's probably not going to work out very well for him. He's been really bad on the road. He had one good game this year at New York, but New York is terrible, and they've gotten eaten alive by wide receiver ones. And I guess you could say, well, Kansas City doesn't play good defense either, but I think this is a different story. No way I'm going near Hilton.
All right, Chris, is this a recipe for disaster for Hilton, and that makes you go with Tyreek Hill, or do you like Hilton?
I'm a little more into Hilton than these guys are. I think, what sticks out to me is the Chiefs are giving up a ton of yards per pass, also a ton of air yards per target, and you also have a pretty decent chance of the Colts playing from behind here. So that stuff would make me favor Hilton. And also one thing that would give me pause about Hill is the Colts defense is really designed to keep players in front of them. Obviously, Tyreek Hill, he is called Tyreek Freak for a reason. He can get behind any coverage, but I do think they've been good at keeping the ball in front of them all year. And it gives me enough pause with Tyreek where I'd rather go with the team playing from behind, go with T.Y. Hilton.
All right, glad to see the pup joined us. I was waiting. From top wideouts to premier backs.
Got to help out as best you can. Yeah. That's my stats girl.
It's just a matter of time. From top wideouts to premier backs, Ezekiel Elliott and Todd Gurley headline the Rams-Cowboys showdown. Gurley has been practicing. He'll play. That came out today. It's official. He's $8K. Zeke, most expensive back of the week, and just a couple hundred more, $8,200. So which guy will have the most points? Pierce.
I'm going to go with Ezekiel Elliott. The issue I have with Todd Gurley is the Rams offense has a plethora of weapons, and they can spread it around, and anybody in the Rams can have a big game. You look at the Cowboys, on the other hand, and really the offensive firepower is concentrated between Ezekiel Elliott and Amari Cooper, and really what they want to do is run the ball with Ezekiel Elliott against the Rams defense. And the best thing is the volume. Really, there isn't a scenario where Zeke doesn't get the carries. Even when they've been getting blown out this year and been playing from behind, he's still catching passes out of the backfield. He's still getting plenty of runs. If the game's close, of course he's going to have a big game.
Spags?
Yeah, I think with the Rams are giving up 5.1 yards per rush. Obviously, the Cowboys' preference is going to be to hammer the ball on the ground if they can. If they get behind, Zeke is still involved in the pass game. I think that's all good. And we also just saw what the Cowboys' defense did versus Chris Carson, who obviously Todd Gurley, a much better running back. But the Seahawks really wanted to run the ball there, and they just couldn't get it going versus the Cowboys. I think that gives me enough reasons to worry about Gurley and Zeke, that he is the Cowboys' offense. So I'm agreed there. It's got to be Zeke.
Mr. Fowler, whose back you got?
Yeah, it's got to be Zeke. I mean, look, you get Gurley off of 4 weeks, right? 3 or 4 weeks of rest. So he's freshest legs than he's ever had this entire season. But Ezekiel Elliott, man, his floor is so nice. He's averaging, 25, 26 total touches in the regular season and saw over 30 against Seattle. This guy's game script proof. Like, even if the Rams or even if Dallas does get down early, which they most likely will, since the Rams had the second most points in the first half scored, and Dallas has the second, or I think the least in terms of points scored in the first half at around 5.8. He's still heavily involved. So you just love his floor. We've seen Gurley, if these guys are blown out, we've seen Gurley come out in the fourth quarter. I don't think that necessarily is going to happen, but I'd much rather have Zeke in this spot.
All right, Chris, we've heard it like a million times this week. Phillip Rivers has never beaten Tom Brady, 0 for 7, but he's the more expensive guy. I mean, the Pats QB is by $100. It's only $5,700. It's close, but still, Rivers is ahead of him. So do you think Rivers will finally pick up that W and have a better game than Brady here?
Yeah, for me, I think Tom Brady looks like he's in a better spot here. I think Rivers actually can win the game, but I don't think it's going to come entirely on his arm, whereas Brady, I could see a world where he just has to throw a lot of dink and dunk cheap passes to James White. Obviously, Edelman's going to be a highly targeted guy here, whereas Rivers, the New England pass defense is not great, but good enough to limit some guys. I think you're going to see a really big focus on Keenan Allen. I think Rivers has an okay day, but I'd rather have Brady for the $100 savings.
Reed, where do you sit on this one? Are you going with Rivers or are you going with Brady?
Yeah, I'm going to have to go with Kaufman's best friend, no, not Glasheen, with Tom Brady here. It's Spags hit the nail on the head there. You look at Phillip Rivers, I don't think he's been having to really put up these big games. That defense is really performing for him. So we've seen him hit, single digits in the past couple of games. He hasn't really needed to go into the well to, throw 45 times. Really, where that's where Rivers has big games is when that volume is up. We see Brady's averaging over 30 attempts at home and over 20 DK fantasy points in the last 4 games at home. Clearly, his home road splits, he does so much better. You mentioned Julian Edelman. This guy has been targeted a ton. I see that again coming this weekend. So yeah, I'm with Brady here.
All right, Pierce, which one of the elder statesmen of the NFL do you like?
I was going to say Kaufman's boyfriend, but I guess we'll stick with best friend.
I've missed you too, pal.
Yeah. Look, it's Tom Brady. It's the playoffs. He's won a whole bunch of Super Bowls because he plays really well in the playoffs. You look at his last 10 playoff games, multi-touchdown game in 9 of those. He averages over that span 340 yards a game, 2.5 touchdowns per game. You play Tom Brady in the playoffs. Just don't even overthink it.
All right, cry yourself a Rivers. Phillips. Stupid,
nice.
I know. Thanks.
Man.
All right, yeah,
Good.
I know. They're going to get worse. A couple more QBs. Nick Foles, 5,400 and a huge underdog despite being sainted. And, Drew Brees, he's only averaging 13 DK points his last 4 games, but insanely talented. He's going to cost you 6,700. So can you see more Foles magic this weekend and a superior performance, Reed?
No, I don't think so. And shout out to Julian Edlow, for putting you on blast there for liking the sound of your own voice. I appreciate that. But no, there's no way. Like, at home, Breeze, 321 yards on average. This guy's, they score 37 points at home. About 3 passing touchdowns at home. Everything is setting up for the Saints to do well here. And yes, Foles is someone that has been performing above his standard and above all of our standards. But again, you got Thomas there, an 85% catch rate. Just all the stars are aligning for Brees to have a big game here. The only way he doesn't, right, is if they're up by so much that they pull their starters in the fourth. But yeah, I'm going to go with Brees here.
Which one you like, Pierce?
I disagree. I'd rather have Foles. It's just the script for the Saints. They're very likely that they're going to run the ball into the end zone. Very likely that they're going to play with the lead and not pass as much and not pass in the red zone either. You're not going to take those risks with the lead. They'll probably play more conservative, settle for field goals, or just run the ball. Meanwhile, the Eagles, their pass-to-run ratio is 7th highest in football, and they're not going to be able to run the ball against the Saints. They're going to have to lean on the pass, and that's what they do. I just think the volume and the game script favors Foles.
Spags, only one of the 3 to not rip on me. I hope you don't feel too left out. Who you like, Breeze or Foles?
Well, I'm an unabashed fan of you, so that's my first pick. But also, I would say I'm going to be with Pierce on this side. I think Foles is going to be playing from behind. I think we haven't seen Breeze actually have to throw a lot. He's just playing a ton of conservative offense lately because the run game has been so effective. I think it's going to struggle a little bit here versus the Eagles relative to some of the games down the stretch of the regular season. But I think there's going to be enough there where Breeze just not going to throw a lot in the red zone, like Pierce said. And I think Foles is going to be playing from behind. And this Saints team is beatable. They've been good at home defensively, but they are beatable in a lot of ways. DVOA-wise, they actually don't grade out that well, pretty much across the board in the past game. So Foles, throw it. I don't know if he's going to win, but the magic will be in the air for at least putting up a good fantasy day.
All right, good stuff, guys. Stay with us. More football later. Pucks next after this Fantasy Flash.
Brendan Glasheen here, and with this DraftKings Fantasy Flash. Per multiple reports, 2 sports star Kyler Murray is expected to declare for the 2019 NFL Draft before next Monday's deadline. The Oklahoma quarterback was chosen by the A's with the 9th pick in the 2018 Major League Baseball Draft. Murray's deal with Oakland included a hefty signing bonus, plus allowed him to play one more season of football with the Sooners. There's football first-round pick chatter surrounding the Heisman winner. Heck, new Cardinals head coach Cliff Kingsbury back in October said he'd take him first overall, potentially. If Murray were to ultimately choose laces over seams, he'd have to return his signing bonus to the A's. Now, he did admit about a month ago he's uncertain of which direction he wants to go in. He'd ideally like to play professionally in both sports. No matter where you look, one person like Murray's agent Scott Boras says he has a baseball contract. He's a baseball guy. Another might say he's leaning football. Declaring for the draft doesn't guarantee football is his move. Regardless, Murray needs to make a decision in the next month or so, because guess what's a month away, everybody? Spring training, which also tangles with NFL scouting combine preparation. Decisions.
I think we've made Chris Wassel wait long enough. Let's hit the ice with one of the dudes from awesomemode.com. Chris, good to see you. Looking at 12-game slate here, Braden Point is at his highest price all season, $7,300 versus the Hurricanes, but increases, it seems to be justified, I suppose. He's been on fire. Do you think he's going to continue the hot streak and be worth the money?
It's hard to see any reason why he wouldn't. He plays with arguably the best player on earth right now, Nikita Kucherov, who literally is averaging over 1.5 points a game, guys, which is something we don't often see in this era of the NHL. And Point's been a big reason for that. That quote-unquote second line for Tampa, which acts like anybody else's first line, has been on fire. And no real team other than San Jose has been able to stop it.
Next up, we have Joe Pavelski. He's 6,700 against the Golden Knights. They've won their last 7, so is that a little too much here for him?
I'm busy. 6,700 is more than reasonable for a guy like Pavelski. Look, he gets most of his points now on the power play. He cleans up, he gets a lot of tips, deflections and such, and he still generates a pretty decent enough shot volume that the price is actually warranted. No matter if he's struggling or not, he always has this chance of coming up with a goal to hit value.
How about Morgan Riley? 6,500, but he's been kind of quiet lately. Just one game with more than 2.5 fantasy points in his last 5. Does he deserve to be the second most expensive defenseman tonight against the Devils?
He probably does not, but because it's the Devils and the fact that they gave up 7 goals the last time these two teams faced in New Jersey, you have to consider using him. It's like the old, well, if this was any other night and they were playing probably most other teams, Morgan Riley would probably be the 6th or 7th highest priced defenseman. But because they're playing a team like the Devils, that at 5-on-5 is one of the worst teams in the league, he is at least close to warranted tonight.
All right, one more here. Antoine Hudobin is facing off against the Flyers, and just in case you didn't know, they're one of the worst offenses in the NHL. Do you have to play him here at 7,800?
Well, you don't have to necessarily. There's a couple guys that are a few $100s up that aren't in such bad spots tonight, one of them being Yaroslav Halak and the Boston Bruins, who are 16-5 at home and give up a ridiculously low amount of goals a game at home, when around 2.2 when starting at home. That's pretty darn stingy. You could even flip the script a little and try to go high risk and go Carter Hart, who's a good bit cheaper than Hudobin tonight. Or if you feel like you need to go Hudobin, you can go that route too. But just understand that there are other options tonight other than going with the Dallas goalie.
All right, Chris, thank you very much. We'll catch you again next time. I appreciate you coming on. Now, as you know, almost time for the divisional round of the NFL playoffs. That includes a Cowboys visit to L.A. to face the Rams. I had the opportunity earlier this week to sit down with DallasCowboys.com beat writer Nick Eatman. We heard the first part of that chat on last night's show. I hope you didn't miss it. You can go back and check out the archive on Facebook. Otherwise, here's the rest. Learn. Have they had to contend with a guy that's this good, that defensive line, in Todd Gurley?
Well, not this year, obviously, because he is the best, and they faced him last year, and they didn't fare so well. I think he was one of the only players in the history of the Cowboys that they've opponent that went for 100 yards receiving and rushing in the same game. So that was just last year. I think he's got better, and they're really knowing how to use him. So. He's the standard when it comes to that. They faced some other guys before. I mean, different type of back, but they did a nice job of stopping the run against the Saints with the Kamara. They did a good job of limiting him and Ingram. And then last week against Seattle, they were the #1 rushing offense in the league, and they really kind of shut them down as well. So that's going to be the task. It might be a little harder if Gurley's 100%.
We talked about Todd Gurley. On your side, though, you got Ezekiel Elliott coming off a huge game in that wild card game. Now L.A. shaky against the run. Does it make sense to lean on Zeke?
I think it makes sense to lean on Zeke, whoever you're playing. I mean, he's the best player on the team. He's the guy that he's leading the team in receptions. He's also obviously their best runner. He's the guy, and so it's that whole cliche of you dance with the person that you brought, and that's that. I mean, I'm sorry, Zeke is the guy that's gotten to this point, and you got to lean on him. And I think that even when it's not going well, you're going to have to keep doing that and keep relying on that run, and hope that some of the other things kind of develop because of that.
If Dak Prescott finds any success in the air, seemingly it's going to be with Amari Cooper. Allen Hurns is out. Cole Beasley battling an ankle injury. Is this setting up to be a big game for Cooper, you think?
Yeah, I think so. He's faced these two corners with Talib and Marcus Peters. They were all in the same division together there in Oakland when he was there. So he knows these guys. They know him. It'll be that'll be a good matchup. The Cowboys, when they get some other guys helping Beasley, maybe he'll be banged up some, but I think he's going to be able to play. Michael Gallup's a player. He scored last week. He's a player that's kind of emerged as well. So if they can get Michael Gallup going, he's kind of a deep ball threat. And that's the thing about these corners for the Rams. They jump on routes. They like to sit in coverage. They know that that the pass rush is going to get home pretty quick. So there are some plays to be made deep, and I think Michael Gallup's a guy that can do that and stretch the field for him. Maybe Tavon Austin as well. If there's anybody that wants to make big plays against the Rams, it would be Tavon Austin.
Last one for you. Now that Jason Garrett has locked up a playoff win, just his second in a span of 9 years, it'd be great to get another one, obviously. But how's his job security at this point?
Jerry Jones has said a couple of times this week, and he's saying it, he's not coming out and exactly saying this is what the way it's going to be, but he's like, he kind of turns around and says, what would you do if you saw the success like this? And, and he was just like, and he said, look at all these teams in the league trying to find coaches. He's like, we've already got one, and I'd like to use it. So I don't think he's going anywhere. I think last week's win was very important, and I think this week, it would only add to it. But I think that they really like what they're seeing out of Jason Garrett right now, and I just can't see at this point any changes being made.
All right, Nick Eatman from DallasCowboys.com covers the team, has for a couple of decades, and we'll see if they can take you on to the conference finals. Best of luck.
That'd be great. Thank you so much.
Talked to him a couple days ago. Apparently, I need some more shirts.
Well, there you go.
Back here with our hoops experts in DK Live's Julian Edlow and Gary Thorne, along with Karin Phillips of the New York Daily News. Boys, time for a little NBA over-under. All right, we're going to give you a game tipping off tonight, the projected point total. You give us your take. So first up, Celtics taking on the Heat in Miami. Boston coming off a thrashing of the Pacers. That was last night at home, 135 points. So
pretty good.
Yeah, great outing. Of course, nobody had to play other than Jaylen Brown more than, I think, 24, 25 minutes. So everyone's rested, but they did have to travel. Tonight's total combined 212 points. Karin, is this an easy over? Does the fact that the Celtics are on that second leg of a back-to-back give you pause?
I'm going under here, given that we had that rare quote that we talked about from Kyrie earlier. And if your best player doesn't want to score 30 until he has to, and this isn't a game where he shouldn't have to, that's just the first part of it. The second part is that this is a back-to-back. Guys are probably tired. The third part is that it's a back-to-back in Miami, which means that it's Miami. And if you live in Boston, and if you played last night, you can get to Miami as quick as possible to enjoy Miami, you're probably not going to score a lot of points tonight.
Julian, I don't know if guys were going out all night the night before a game, but then again, stranger things have happened. What do you think in this game?
Well, I do live in Boston, and I am going to Miami later this month, and I can tell you that I might be a little tired when I'm there because I have plans of doing some things that might take me late into that. No one cares about this,
I
though.
care.
We
want you to have fun.
We're going under. Don't look into the 135 points that the Celtics scored last night. It looks even better that it came against the best defensive team in the NBA, but it is the second night of a back-to-back. Whether it's in Miami, Boston, anywhere, this is a really slow-paced team in the Miami Heat. There's some potential for the Celtics are a much better team. I like them a lot in this game. I think it's going to grind down later in the game. I like this game to go under.
Well, and worth acknowledging, Gary, as well, that the Celtics have the second-best defense in the NBA, so that should give Miami fits.
Yeah, the Heat have a really good defense, too. You go back across the last 10 games, they have a top 5 defense by defensive rating, and they run the second slowest pace in the NBA. So initially, I was kind of along the same vein as these guys looking towards the under, but it's such a low number. And to be fair, you go into some of the trends here. Boston's gone over their number in 4 of the last 5 second half of back-to-backs. Those totals tend to be a little bit lower than maybe should be expected. Miami's actually gone over the number in 6 of their last 8 games overall. Boston's offense has been prolific in terms of offensive efficiency the last couple of games. Miami's been middle of the pack. I think this game can squeak over.
All right, next up here we have the Clippers and Nuggets. LA is trying to climb up the Western Conference standings against those Denver Nuggets. This total is set for 225.5. Which way are you falling here, Gary? We'll keep it with you.
Another over. This one's a little bit easier, I think. I think it's pretty clear that these are two of the hottest offensive teams in basketball. Across that same 10-game span I was just referencing, they are number 2 and number 3 in offensive rating, generating about 116 points per 100 possessions. And the Clippers are doing that sort of efficiency while also running an exceedingly high-paced offense. They're 4th in pace over that same span. So it just seems like this is a game between two offensive juggernauts. I think this game's going to pretty easily go over this number.
All right, Julian, how do you feel about this matchup?
Yeah, well, I'm actually planning to go to Denver later this month. No.
All right.
All right.
It's pretty easy. Gary pretty much said everything that I was going to say. It's 2 offensive teams. The Clippers are on the road. Denver's been scoring really well lately. I would say this is probably my most confident play on the totals of the 4 games on this slate. This game going over.
All right, wrap us up here, Karin.
Oh, I'm definitely going over. And to steal a Miami phrase, The Denver Nuggets have gone over 100 points in their last, not 5, not 6, not 7, but 10 games in a row. They've hit the century mark. Definitely going over here.
Not 5. That was so great. All right, Russell Westbrook of the Thunder in San Antonio. OKC is the 7th best defense in the league heading into this one anyway, and the Spurs just put up 86 against Memphis last time out, which, of course, is terrible. So the total, 225.5. Is it too high, Jules?
Yeah, so the Nuggets game was probably my most confident one of the night. If I was going to lay off of a total tonight, it would probably be this game. I think this number is really spot on. OKC's been a really good defensive team this season, but they've also been playing at one of the fastest paces in the league over the last month, 5 weeks or so. I think this game's going to be right around this number, and if I had to pick it, I would go over just because Spurs games at home this season, they've tended to be, San Antonio's been a much better scoring team at home, and I think the pace that OKC is playing at will kind of help give into that. This should be a really close game. I think this game has the potential to go slightly over, but probably my least confident of the 4 games here.
225.5, Gary, and over or under?
Yeah, it's sort of like Julian was talking about. OKC's sort of an over-under paradox this season because they've got a great defense, but they run the fastest pace offense in the NBA, at least they have in the last 20 games or so. But they've also had a terrible offensive rating. So really, there's like 3 pros, 6 cons. You're kind of weighing it out. And San Antonio hasn't been a lot less complex either. They've been pretty consistently one of the best offenses in basketball, and they've been maybe the best offense in basketball going across the last 4 weeks. But their defense has only gotten good recently, and I still don't necessarily believe in that unit. So I think this number is pretty close. I'd be inclined to say under, but I'm not confident really either way.
Karin, I feel like I'm tied up in a little bit of a pretzel. Take me out of it here. Over or under on the 225?
Oh, we're going under like a shoelace when you're tying it up. Like everything that Julian and Gary said was right on the money. And then when I just think of the Spurs and this new Spurs team, I just think of like give the ball to like Marcus Aldridge and get out the way and hope he kicks it out for a 3-pointer or he can score. And nothing about this matchup feels like they're going to hit the over on this.
All right, good stuff, guys. We'll get you guys in a little bit, obviously, to wrap up the show. But first, we have an exciting event to tell you guys about.
Yeah, if you happen to be in the tri-state area or want to go there, starting tomorrow through January 13th, DraftKings is hosting its first ever sports betting national championship. It's cleverly called the DraftKings Sports Betting National Championship. It's in Jersey City, New Jersey.
I like the name there.
Yeah,
it's going to be a fun contest. It is easy to remember there. And also, it's pretty fun because you have a chance to win the grand prize of $1 million. Yes, $1 million. For more information, go to DraftKings.com.
Or just go there, hang out, have a couple of drinks, and see Adam Levitan. Oh, speaking of Levy, I caught up with him earlier today in this very shirt again for the latest Levitan's Leverage. Wildcard weekend was a wild time, 3 upsets, but this weekend brings us 4 more games in the divisional round, so let's find out who Adam Levitan is targeting. This is Levitan's Leverage. I'm Adam Kaufman. He's the more important Adam right now. Levy, Pat Mahomes might be throwing in a snowstorm when the Chiefs host the Colts on Saturday, but the MVP favorite, 7K, weather pending, still a very high projected point total for this one. You like to play no matter the conditions?
I wouldn't say no matter the conditions. I think I'm on the lookout for extreme stuff, extreme wind, extreme snow, et cetera, et cetera. But assuming that the weather is okay, I think the Chiefs will take a very pass-heavy approach against the Colts defense, which was 4th in DVOA, against the run and 20th against the pass. And yeah, a lot of the Colts' raw passing stats look really good. They have faced the softest quarterback schedule in terms of opponents in the entire league. So Patrick Mahomes getting these 2 weeks off, getting ready for an explosive game, I think that it will happen for him and it'll happen for the Chiefs to score the most points on the slate, mostly through the pass game.
Over in the NFC that night, Ted Ginn, 4,400 for the Saints, hosting the defending champs. There's that Nick Foles magic on the other side. Receiver's got a knee injury, shouldn't slow him down. So only Cincy and KC allowed more passing yards than Philly during the regular season. Is this just a no-brainer?
I wouldn't say no-brainer. I mean, Ted Ginn has barely played since week 4. He was on IR return, came back in week 16, and did see 8 targets in that game, but still played fewer snaps than Keith Kirkwood. I think the leap of faith we have to take here is that given week 17, he was off. Given the wild card round, Ted Ginn was off. his knee is now closer to 100%. And against an Eagles defense, which everybody just takes this extreme pass-heavy approach against, Ted Ginn will have chances to get behind the defense. But anytime you have a guy that's really just a situational deep threat, a streaker like that, the floor is always going to be lower, I think, than people realize. But the ceiling on Ted Ginn for 4,400 is certainly awesome.
All right, let's see if we can find a third thing for me to get you to not say. Another home target on Sunday, the Rams tight end Gerald Everett. Big value, 2,700. There's always risk of a goose egg. We know that. So had that in Week 17. Jared Goff focused on his receivers instead. Is the high upside potential the thing that's really drawing you to this matchup with the Cowboys?
So first of all, when the matchup in the Cowboys is where to you attack the Cowboys. I mean, they have struggled against tight ends repeatedly this year. So that's a good thing for Gerald Everett, who's a talented guy, former second-round pick, seen at least 6 targets in 3 out of his last 4 games. So that's all good. I think the best point about playing Gerald Everett from a roster construction standpoint is that whereas a lot of the running backs and wide receivers were priced down on this slate, such as Zeke and Gurley and Robert Woods and Cooks and T.Y. Hilton, et cetera, the tight ends such as Travis Kelce still at $7K, Zach Ertz still above 5,500, Eric Ebron still at 5,500. Those are normal price tags. So I think a place where we can save money is at tight end, allow us to take advantage of some of those better values at the running back and wide receiver position. And I think it's pretty clear below 3K, the best tight end play is for sure Gerald Everett.
You know, most people grow their beards for the playoffs. Why am I not surprised you go against the grain?
I'm going to this sports betting thing on Friday. I didn't want to look too homeless, so I decided to shave.
There you go. Best of luck to you. I know you're going to wish everybody luck here as well. Levitan's Leverage, always available on the DK Playbook. Check it out and learn a few things, right? Next time we'll be getting you ready for the conference championships. Thanks, Levy.
All right, good luck.
All right, back to the NFL we go. And by the way, good job, buddy.
Oh,
you know,
thanks.
It's another day there.
Levy makes it easy.
Well, yeah, you know, that's usually how I do it. But all right, we're going to help you guys cash in this weekend with the NFL. It's okay.
Nice.
We're going to bring in DK Live's Reed Fowler, Pierce Dietrich, and plus Chris Spagnolo of Awesemo.com. The NFL is propped up here where you can get your predictions in for some of the prop bets heading into the divisional round here.
A lot of different choices, too. In fact, let's look at this one. Andrew Luck, he is plus 165 to throw more touchdowns than Pat Mahomes this weekend. That means bet $100 on Luck, you could be looking at winning 165. Not a bad swing there. So Spags, you think he does it?
I think he's got a good shot at it. I don't know that I could say for sure that he does it, but I think the odds are getting here seem worthwhile for me. The concern really is that if the Colts want to try to keep the Chiefs at bay, they're going to run the ball with Marlon Mack quite a bit. But obviously, if the Chiefs get out to be in the lead at all, Andrew Luck's going to be throwing it. And I think with the way that the Chiefs can score, Damian Williams is looking good. We have Spencer Ware theoretically back in the lineup. There are ways they can score that don't involve the pass. So Andrew Luck can get there, and I don't mind the odds.
Reed, keep in mind this game could be in a snowstorm as well. So what do you think of this one?
Yeah, where's Stevie Buchanan when you need him?
Weather talk.
Yeah, I'm with Spags here. Like I'm more of Mahomes in this match. Man, if you just look at the raw numbers in the splits with Luck away and then Mahomes at home, and over the last 3 games, they have identical numbers. So just going with that home team, going with really the Colts. Look, if they want to keep this high-powered offense on the sideline, I wouldn't be surprised if Marlon Mack comes out the first drive and a lot of drives thereafter where he runs the ball quite a bit, keeping this team at bay, especially against Kansas City's rush defense, which is not that good. They're one of the worst, if not the worst, in the NFL. Obviously, you're going to play up in the playoffs. They've had rest, but I can easily see this going to Mahomes.
Pierce, Luck, plus 160 to throw more TDs than Mahomes. What do you think?
No, Luck's not going to throw more touchdowns. Kansas City's the passing team in this equation. 50 passing touchdowns this year. 50! What are we even talking about? And anyway, like they've mentioned, Indianapolis is trending heavy to the run, and they're running really well. The offensive line's playing well. Marlon Mack looks like a whole new guy. And Kansas City allowed the 6th most rushing touchdowns this year. They should run the ball, especially if there's going to be a snowstorm.
Yeah, it's very true there. All right, now looking at the Cowboys here. Amari Cooper, he's plus 1,100 to score 2 touchdowns here. Again, that's a pretty big payout.
Yeah. Because,
again, you put $100, that's $1,000 in your pocket. That's pretty nice there.
Pretty good.
Pierce, Cooper hits pay dirt twice here. Do you like that?
I like it a lot. I pointed this out on the show yesterday that Cooper's going to get a lot of matchups against Marcus Peters. And Peters is a riverboat gambler. He likes to take chances and get interceptions. Sometimes it works, but when it doesn't work, it leads to big plays. And we've seen Cooper have big plays all throughout his career. I think this is a really good prop bet.
All right, Spags, how do you feel about it? You like it too?
Yeah, I'm with Pierce. I think, the fact the Rams give up a 15.9% boost via Football Outsiders DVOA augurs pretty well for the situation. And I think Cooper, too, the fact that we might be playing from behind, or I'm a Cowboys fan, I said we there like a real jerk, but the fact we might be playing from behind means that Cooper's going to have more opportunity. I think it all bodes well. He's really the only target now who they have who can do anything in the pass game. I mean, maybe Blake Jarwin, but really it's Cooper or nothing. So I think he can get there, and it's not a bad bet, not bad odds on that.
Don't beat yourself up. You can be the 12th man.
Yeah, it's perfectly fine there. Reed, how do we feel about Spags' Cowboys? And we're looking at, obviously, Cooper here.
Yeah, what self-awareness from a Cowboys fan. I like that, Spags. Look, I agree with these guys if he stays with Marcus Peters, right? I mean, the Rams have given up this number 4 times. Minnesota, Kansas City has done it, and Seattle. So David Moore, Aldrick Robinson of Minnesota, of all people, and then Conley and Tyreek Hill. He can't, and if he gets Aqib Talib though in that middle, Aqib Talib and Cooper have seen each other quite a bit when they played in the AFC West with Oakland and Denver, and Talib absolutely shuts him down. So if he's on Peters more than he is on Talib, then I like this prop bet. If not, though, there's no way I'm taking it.
It's like the Cowboys fan and the Raiders fan kind of going head to head.
Not bad.
All they share is Amari Cooper. Read the over/under for Gronk. Rob Gronkowski. His catch is 3.5. I think over his last handful of playoff games, he has averaged 5. So something to keep in mind. He hasn't been the same guy this year. If you think he hits the over, that's minus 139. So if he goes under, you bet 139. You win a crisp $100. You bet the under, that's 105. So how many catches does he end up with against the Chargers?
I appreciate you elaborating that Gronk is short for Robert Gronkowski. I appreciate that, Koff.
I don't know his middle name.
Yeah, exactly. This one's tough, right? You would look at this number and you think this is absolutely absurd. Gronk over under 3. But like you mentioned, he hasn't really hit that mark a lot this season. Over his last 6, he's only hit it once. And so when you look at this matchup, and historically in the playoffs, he's hit 75% of the time. It's hard to think that he's going to go under this. Even though the Chargers are number 1 in DVOA against the tight ends, they still give up about 6 to 7 receptions. So for this prop bet, I do like him hitting the over, but it's a scary one. I'm not exactly confident in it, but it's Gronk here, so I'm gonna say over.
We don't just bring you analysis here, we bring you information. Rob Gronkowski's middle name is James Spags.
Boom.
His parents probably care. What do you think?
Yeah, I'm with Reed. I think, look, the prospects there via DVOA really bad. The Chargers defended much better tight ends, much more difficultly. Travis Kelce's had some bad days versus the Chargers this year, and he's a much more dynamic athlete than Gronk is at this stage of the game. That said, I think I'm going to go under. I think the shading probably makes it a little bit better of a play, but it's a scary proposition. Gronk could easily pick up 6 cheap catches, and even if he doesn't have a good day, can get there. So I don't mind either side of the bet, but I would take the shading and go under.
Pierce, how do you feel about this prop?
Well, I was going to say something about Tide Pods, but I've only been here for a week, so I probably should just take it easy for right now.
Yeah, slow re-entry.
Animal and get some mesenchymal stem cell injections you could bring back his career, but for right now, there's just too many targets on that team. It's not going to work. Why go to Gronk? Go to the other guys.
I haven't heard Pierce mention stem cell injections in at least a year.
Yeah, no.
Easing himself back in. It's great.
All right, now the Eagles are riding some Nick Foles magic these playoffs. He hit Golden Tate for the go-ahead touchdown last week, and is plus 1,100 to do so again in an Eagles win this week. So, Spags, do you like Tate that hit the end zone in a Philly win?
So I don't like this bet because you're basically relying on 2 outcomes there to get the result you want. And parlays are always much less beneficial overall. I'd rather stake my claim on Amari in that bet, which is roughly the same odds, for him getting 2 touchdowns. Because Golden Tate here, he's not a high touchdown machine, even in Detroit's offense where he was a much more important part of things. I'm not comfortable there. I think the Eagles can score through the air, but I'd rather not bank on them winning the game and needing Tate to get a touchdown as part of that.
All right, Pierce, feel the same way?
Pretty much. He has 6 targets, red zone targets in 9 games, but that really doesn't say that much. It's recorded, 2 touchdowns. The thing that I don't like is if you look at that play, he didn't even know what the play was where he scored the touchdown. He just made something up. I'm not going to bet on a Sandlot football player. No way.
All right, Reed, do you feel the same way, or are you going to maybe go with some Foles magic here and hope that it pans out for you?
Yeah, Pierce, stem cell research, stem cell injections in Sandlot, just the national treasure here.
Yeah, guy's back.
Yeah, I'm with these guys. And really, too, it's Nelson Aguilar has become another receiver that Foles keens in on, seeing 7 targets and 3 red zone targets over the last 3 games. So if it's not Ertz, it's going to be Aguilar for me. And Tate is just a guy that you just, like these guys said, there is no confidence in. So, nope.
All right, guys, we always appreciate your insight. Next up, we're going to put the finishing touches on this edition of The Sweat as we give you the NBA guys with the last word. That's right after this.
Hey, it's that time for your DraftKings Fantasy Flash. I'm Taryn Azak. The Nationals have landed a power bat, and no, it's not Bryce Harper. Washington has been one of the most active teams this offseason, and that continued Thursday as they reportedly reached a one-year, $9 million deal with free agent second baseman Brian Dozier. The 31-year-old Dozier had a pretty rough 2018, batting just .215 with 21 home runs in his time with both the Twins and the Dodgers. In the past, however, Dozier has proven to bring a lot of pop to the lineup and solid defense. He was an all-star in 2015, hit 42 home runs in 2016, and earned himself a Gold Glove in 2017. The addition of Dozier at $9 million brings the Nationals that much closer to the luxury tax threshold, and if they re-sign outfielder Bryce Harper, they would be well above it. Although, if they can convince Harper to come back, I'm sure they'd gladly take the hit. If they can't bring him back, Dozier will at least provide the Nationals with some of the power they'll lose if Harper signs elsewhere.
Final few moments here, and we're going to squeeze in just a little NBA talk before we get out of here. We've got, what, about 10 minutes, I think. So to do that, we welcome back Julian Edlow and Gary and Thorne of DK Live, also New York Daily News, Karin Phillips. So, guys, got a couple of showdown contests tonight with the Clippers, Nuggets, along with the Pistons and Kings. Once again, for Detroit, no Blake Griffin tonight. He's not going to play. Puts Andre Drummond in a great spot. We'll make the first question simple, Julian, so you can understand. Which showdown contest do you like better?
Thank you, Kaufman. I do understand the question.
Good.
I like the Pistons and Kings showdown contest better because of the value that Blake Griffin's absence creates for us. You can probably captain Andre Drummond, who should have a huge game, and then use the trickle-down effect to get the rest of the Pistons value in there with a couple of your favorite Kings plays. Or you could go a different route, maybe captain one of those Detroit value plays like Reggie Jackson, Stanley Johnson, John Lohr, and then try and fit Drummond, De'Aaron Fox, Buddy Hield, some of the bigger studs in the game. So there's a few routes you can go, but Blake Griffin being out definitely makes that the more appealing game to target.
How about you, Karin? Which showdown contest is more tempting?
It's like me and Julian never agree, but today, like, we're in perfect harmony.
Yeah, something's going on, man.
Ebony
I like that.
Ivory.
I like that.
Now, in terms of any of these games, I don't want to watch any of these games. but this matchup of the Pistons and the Kings, because once you threw the Blake news in there, kind of like, ooh, what do we have here? So this is intriguing in terms of fantasy. In terms of my personal enjoyment, previous channel button.
Gary, I'm pretty confident you're not going to watch either of these games, but if you are doing a showdown for one of them, which one is it?
Well, I did only write up one of them on DK Playbook this morning, so I guess I kind of just have to say I'm more interested in the King-Pistons game. I will say it's very nice of us at DraftKings to give these bad Thursday night games the showdown slate just so maybe people pay attention to them.
Sure.
Of course, there's a little pat on the back for that one because, yeah, I don't really feel like watching either of these, but there's a lot of value, and you can do some really fun things with the Blake Griffin news. So it is kind of a fun slate from that perspective.
All right, now looking at that Clippers-Nuggets game there, is there a clear choice for a captain spot there, Karin?
Yes. His name is the Joker, and he's awesome, and I really like him. So I'm going to go with that guy because he's coming off a triple-double, and he's like one of the best stat stuffers in the league right now. So look at the big man in Denver. Go with him.
All right, Gary, is it that clear of a choice?
Yeah, I mean, look, he's priced really, really high tonight. I get it. I get looking at it and going, man, I can't afford him in the captain spot, but figure it out. Because like we said off the top of the show, even if you let me take Westbrook in that question, I wouldn't have taken Westbrook. Like, I think Jokic is in the best spot of any player tonight. Numbers really do bear that out. And I just think that you can make the money work because he's going to be worth having in that captain slot.
All right, Julian, you feel that same way, or is there another guy that you maybe feel more comfortable or just as comfortable putting in that captain spot and saving some coin?
No, I feel the same way. It's the primary place to get fantasy points in this contest. I'm just scrolling through looking to try and find a place to even play devil's advocate. It's like the Clippers don't have a guy that you probably want to captain in this game, so I guess Paul Millsap, who's been really up and down since returning from 8 games with that broken toe. If you wanted to be contrarian, he has, equally as good a matchup, has shown a little bit of upside in these games, even though he's been going terrible game, decent game, terrible game, decent game, you can save a little bit of money and captain him, maybe still fit Jokic in and then go down for value. But that would be super contrarian. I'm unanimous with the guys. You want to try and get Jokic here.
Let's take a look.
Yeah,
at,
like
oh, go ahead.
Picking anybody else, but like the Joker here is
It's
like
a dangerous game.
Yeah, it's like being that one contrarian guy every year in the March Madness brackets who picks a 16 over 1 just because they're like it's going to happen
last
this
year.
year.
That worked.
But like, come on, like that's not a really good method.
Let's be people probably didn't pick that one anyway. They picked a different one.
I had it in my bracket, Kaufman.
Okay.
All of them.
Yeah, good. Can't wait to see a copy of that this year. What about the Pistons-Kings game, guys? Who's your captain here, Garion?
I mean, again, I don't mean to beat the dead horse. We've been talking about Andre Drummond all show, but it's a spectacular matchup. The numbers bear out that a player opposing Sacramento should have his way on the glass, and Detroit happens to roster arguably the best rebounding player in all of basketball. I will say, John Lure in this matchup, if you want to get kind of creative and really want a top-heavy team, if you put Lure into your captain spot at 2-7, you can then afford to have the other 5 highest-priced players on this slate, which includes all 3 of those Sacramento Kings guards that you know are going to go off in this contest. So maybe you get a little creative in that capacity, but like Julian said before, there's so much value on this slate, there's really not a reason to get too cute.
Do not feel badly about beating a dead horse. That's what happens when you only have a 4-game NBA slate. That's going to happen, Julian. So is it that obvious? Does it have to be Andre Drummond? Because we know it's not Blake Griffin.
Yeah, I mean, for building a cash lineup tonight, I'm probably going Jokic center, Drummond utility, and then you see what you have left over there and go from there. So we just said we're captaining Jokic in the other game. You're probably just captaining Drummond in this game because getting 1.5 times points there, I know I talked about off the top, how you could captain somebody else. And like Garion just said, that's a really smart idea. You can do Lure and then you get all the other expensive players on the slate. But if Lure has like a really good game and has 20 or 25 DK points and you times that by 1.5 for your captain spot versus Drummond going off for like 60 or 65 and you times that by 1.5, you can't really risk losing out on that if Drummond has the game that we all assume he's going to have. So you got to go Drummond and be really square and then figure it out from there.
All right, that's Ivory. Ebony, your thoughts?
Just make this very simple, people. Andre Drummond. That's it.
I like it there. You know, short, sweet, to the point there. But what about some value now? I mean, you got to, if you're paying up for like the Joker or something like that, Julian, you got to find some guys that are cheap there to fit them in.
Well, on that slate, the value is much more limited. Obviously, the Detroit game, it's pretty obvious. I think Malik Beasley is a guy on Denver. They've kind of been like, they're well known for their backcourt with Murray and Harris, but Harris is all banged up, and they've kind of been going back and forth with different guys. Monty Morris, they have a lot of talented guards in that backcourt. But Malik Beasley at, he's $4,000, $6,000 if you want to captain him. I think he's where I would go for value on this slate against the Clippers backcourt that gets the reputation for Avery Bradley and Patrick Beverley, but they're not all that good on defense.
All right, Garion, what about some value there? Who do you like on the cheap?
Yeah, I think going towards that Nuggets reserve backcourt area is probably the way to go, especially we don't 100% know if Gary Harris is going to play in this game yet. As the last time I checked, he was still questionable. So Malik would probably be chalk because he drew the start in their last game. I do like Monte Morris, though, especially if he's not the one who draws the start and everyone goes towards Beasley. I mean, Morris's numbers haven't been as good as they were for that 2-3 week stretch where there was just no depth to speak of on the Nuggets, but he has a high ceiling. He can go off in these games and get hot and score some points. And then for the other game, I mean, again, it's pretty simple. You're probably not going to go too far away from the John Lures of the world, just because without Zaza too. I know Zaza Pachulia is not exactly a name we need to talk about from DFS capacity a whole lot, but that's how little depth the Pistons have in their front court right now. Where we're talking about Stanley Johnson playing minutes at the 4. So I just think Lure is a pretty obvious play too.
All right, quickly, Karan, who do you like on the cheap?
Give me Monte Morris in Denver. Shout out to Flint Beecher High School, always represented from our Michigan natives.
Nice.
Give me Harry Giles in Sacramento. And my sleeper pick for a low-cost guy would be Luke Kennard in the Pistons game. Because if they're going to go to Andre Drummond and eventually everyone's going to double-team him, you got to kick it out to a shooter. And who's the best shooter on that team? Luke Kennard.
We only have time for a name from each of you here, but Slate-approved pick. Karin, right back to you. Who's the slam dunk pick tonight?
Joker.
Garian? Garian. Karin and Garian? Yeah, let's put you together. Garian. Joker. 2 for 2. See? Same guy. Julian.
Drummond, but play them both.
All right, so there you go. I mean, sometimes it's just not that complicated.
It's really not.
You miss Blake Griffin, it messes
Especially
the whole
that
thing
small
up.
of a slate. It's just that easy.
All right, well, you should go check out the big contest in New Jersey. In the meantime, we got to get out of here. Sweat returns tomorrow, 6 p.m. Eastern. Check it out.